And so I'm like the men. I shoot for the planets. I'm shoot for the moon. I shoot for the sun. And if I fall in the stars. I'm still way ahead of where I started. But I just believe that you need to be bold if you want to get
Mhm,
anything done. You cannot really be 100% bold in your profession if your
mhm,
body's not healthy. So the
mhm.
first thing before you do anything is that you have to know exactly who are you and where you want to evolve to become.
Hello and welcome to the Midlife Revolution Show, the show for busy, empowered women ready to change and level up their lives. I'm your host, Coach Angie, and I'm elated to introduce you to yet another phenomenal woman. I met her a couple weeks ago, and I just thought she was just amazing and strong and very to the point, which I love. Just an amazing human being. Ida Byrd-Hill is a true force. She's the CEO of Automation Works, a virtual trade school transforming lives through high demand tech certifications in AI, cybersecurity, and more. Her journey is raw and real, flunking out of college with a 0.566 GPA. You got to work real hard to do that, right? Then returning to not only graduate, but rise to lead in tech and workforce innovation. She's a board member, a strategist, and a woman deeply committed to building economic mobility through education. Ida is proof that your past does not define your future and that it's never too late to rewrite the narrative. Ida, welcome so much.
Thank you for having me on your show.
Yes, I am so happy that you said yes. I love when people say yes. So, your journey is so bold and so unexpected. You went from flunking out of college to becoming a tech CEO. What lit the fire in you to rise after the first setback?
Well, first of all, because when I went to college, I went on a full ride scholarship to the University of Michigan. And what I
Mhm,
realized is that I lived in a predominantly black environment. And I get to a university that is not only predominantly white, but most of the teaching assistants are from India. And I clearly did not understand a word they said. So for me, the first year was like one of being tossed into another world, literally, and not being able to really communicate with the people who are tasked to deliver me to the finished goal. So I
mhm.
decided I wasn't going to let that hold me back. I did that very right away. I left there and I went to a community college and turned around and went back to Michigan and graduated.
It's amazing. That's a great story. You all, it's never too late. Just because you go to a small community college, basically you took charge. You said, look, this is not for me. This is not for me. I'm not ready. You went, got some more diversity in your life, and then went back and took care of business. And I love that. So tell us about Automation Works. Beyond the
Autom-
certifications, what impact are you most proud of when it comes to changing lives through tech?
Yeah, Automation Works is really what we call a workforce transformation firm because we
Mhm,
do own a virtual IT school, most people know us about, but we also
mhm,
do what they call culture-driven culture audits and leadership coaching, and all of that goes hand in hand because when we place a person at a corporation, oftentimes I have to educate their leaders because they're not ready for people of color in our culture
mhm,
sometimes. And a lot of
mhm,
times we want to mold the young person to their culture, but sometimes I have to mold the corporation to the young person's culture. So it's a
mhm,
win-win for both people. So we do both sides of that business, and that's what we do. We're gunning to train eventually 10 million people. We have an
mhm.
app that we're trying to drive people to that's called SensiWise, which is a tech skill coaching app. But we're also trying to get people into their tech certification so they make more money. We're in the middle of a very chaotic economy, and right now
Mhm.
people are scared.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to
Yeah.
alleviate that fear. And the only way you could do that is to be able to get some credentials that make you in high demand.
Yeah. And so that's amazing, and it is very highly impactful. So what impact are you most proud of when it comes to changing lives through tech? Like, can you give us some success stories that you've had? I'm sure you can give us plenty.
The first one I'm going to talk about is a very recent one, is a returning
Mhm,
citizen by the name of Stefan. Stefan
mhm,
came to us. He was a factory worker at Bridgewater Interior and decided he
mhm,
really wanted to do more than factory work because he's a returning citizen. He had been in prison for 4 years or so. And he
mhm,
came to our network engineering program. And so
mhm,
halfway through, we saw a job at his current company and said, "You need to apply." He said, "Oh, I'm not finished yet." I said, "Yeah, but by the time you get finished with the interviewing process, you'll be closely finished." So he applied for the job that was in his own company. They did a lot of interviews and they actually hired him. So he moved from a factory worker to an
mhm.
IT analyst. He moved from $20 an hour to $32 an hour, which is hefty, right? Given that he never thought he could make that money on an
Mhm,
actual legal job. So then
mhm.
he's now at a new company, L&M Manufacturing. He got a promotion. He's an IT analyst. So he went from $32 an hour to $35 an hour. Now, all of this happened over 2.5 years, which is a hefty leap in two and a half
Yeah.
years. And we believe if
Yes.
that can happen for a returning citizen because they have issues of challenges of background checks, then that can
Mhm,
happen for anybody. Now, what
mhm.
made it so instrumental in this new job, initially they had rejected him because of the background check. But
Right.
because I do know the CEO, because they're local, I picked up the phone and I called them. Said, "Hey, dude, I thought you were felon friendly." He went, "I am." I said, "Then you just turned down one of my people. You made him an offer, and then because of the background check, you took the offer back." He said, "Well, let me
Yeah.
check." And he went and checked and says, "Oh, tell me what happened with the felon and whatever." It was a small thing. It wasn't anything that he killed anybody or whatever. So they
Right.
changed their stance and they actually gave him a new offer. So I was pretty
Ah,
proud about that
some.
one. So that
Yes.
was great. But my
That.
highest graduate is at
Mhm,
166,000, and right
mhm.
behind her is one at 130. So I'm very proud of those students who have crossed the six figures. We have quite a few that have, but that returning citizen one just tells me that if he can do it, anybody can do it because they have
Amen to that.
barriers.
Yes. Thank you, Ida, for flexing your muscles and making sure that he had a great opportunity to get in that company. I love that. And I think we all need to do that. If you can help, please help.
Mhm.
So you've um, broken barriers in both education and industry. What was the moment when you realized this is the work I was born to do?
Well, I have to be honest with you. Education is not my first passion. I
Hmm.
tell people I got a bachelor's in economics, and my first passion is money. I love finances. I love the economy. I just love money. I love numbers. I don't remember
Hmm.
names, but I can remember people's social security numbers, which is crazy. Um, I just love numbers, right? So
Hmm.
that's really my first passion. So that's where I went initially.
Hmm.
But education kind of came to me in a different way. I told people I was in a housing project, 15,
Hmm.
16, and 17, and my next door neighbor could not read. And I didn't realize she couldn't read. It was only because I was reading to her 3-year-old daughter often. She said, "I wish I could do that." And I went, "What?" She went, "Read. I can't read." I didn't know that at the time she had the 3-year-old and two teenagers. So at
Hmm.
15, I taught a grown woman how to read. So then I'm always reading because I was working at a library as a
Hmm.
library page. So I was always, reading to her daughter. The next thing I know, I was reading to 10 kids. Then it grew to 50 kids. And then it grew to 60, 70 kids. That was crazy. And they all had on their pajamas and house shoes. It wasn't until years later that I realized that throughout the hood, that the parents had talked to each other and said, "Hey, our children need to have bedtime stories. She's reading the 3-year-old a bedtime story, so you guys need to go over there too and let
Hmm.
your children be able to read as well." So that's kind of when education became a part of my life, but I still didn't want to do it because, as I said, I like money.
Yeah.
They
Hmm.
make a lot of money for me in education, right? So I
Right.
went into going into finances, and I actually have my strength is I could teach any complex subject to a fifth grader.
Hmm.
Finances, technology, it doesn't matter. Economics, just whatever. That's just has been my strength. And so I made money with that in corporate America. So it was only when I got challenged by a rich dude, and I call him a dude because I kind of was mad at him while I was challenged by him. because
Mhm.
thought I was going to pick up a part of his portfolio because I was referred to him by his grandson on a trip to Vancouver, British Columbia. So I fly out to New York to meet the grandfather with the anticipation I was going to pick up 2 to 3 million for an investment portfolio. And he said, "Well, my grandson said that you took your son out to a video game design camp." I said, "Yeah, I wanted him to see how Asians work since he's going into that field." He said, "I'm gonna give you $25,000 to go into education." And I literally bust out laughing. He said, "What's so funny?" I said, "I make 25,000 a month. So you're gonna give me 1 month to go into a industry that doesn't make any money. What do I
Mhm.
look like? Crazy?" But I did take the check because you never know when life gets tight. And he said, "If you cash this check, you're going into education." I had no intention of cashing the check, but I did take it because you never know when life is tight and you may need the money, right? So I had
Mhm.
the check in my desk drawer, and I had like 4 other checks too that I hadn't cashed. And my assistant, being as wonderful as she is, decided when she went through my drawer that she was going to deposit all these checks. So I didn't know she had done that. So when I get the call from the old guy, because mind you, he kept my number after he wrote the check, he said, "So you're going into education?" I said, "Uh-uh." He said, "Oh, yes, you are, because we made a promise that if you ever cash my check, you were going." I said, "But I didn't cash your check." He said, "Oh, no, I got the canceled check sitting right in front of me." So, yes, you did. So I said, "Well, let me call you back." And I called my assistant technician. I said, "Hey, were you in my drawer?" She was like, "Yeah, you had like 5 checks and I deposited them." I went, "Ah!" I wish I could have choked her, but I was not. I was on the phone because I would have choked her, probably choked her to death, right? And I was like, "Okay," because now you made me make an agreement that I didn't want to do. So now I got to go back to this person because I believe your word is your bond. I said, "I'm going to go into education." But I had set the deck that if I do go into education, it would kick me out. So I applied for this alternative high school that we named Hustle and Techno Preparatory High School. I gave it that name thinking that the education department, Detroit Public Schools, would say, "Nah, we don't want that ghetto sounding school." Them people gave me a contract. They weren't supposed to do that. They were supposed to be my alibi that I tried and it just didn't work. But it didn't turn out that way. So I was pretty irritated about that, right? So I went
Mhm.
in and opened the school. It was a blended cyber alternative school in the CompuWare building downtown Detroit. And it attracted mainly boys, young men. 70% of our students were young men, and they came from
Mhm.
all over the Tri County region, which is crazy because we had a
Mhm.
rule that if you got to school late, we wasn't letting you in.
Mhm.
You had to wait till the next hour of class to get into your class. And we had
Mhm.
kids coming in from Mount Clemens, Farmington Hills, and Inkster into downtown Detroit, which was crazy.
Mhm.
But that is because in 206, in 207, we were the first school in the region that had all technology curriculum. We
Mhm.
had no books at all. Everybody learned
Mhm.
everything on a computer. And the young people loved it. And so the boys really loved it because they could speed through their curriculum if they wanted to. They could do all type of creative things that they wanted to. So that was very when I realized I guess I really am meant to be in education, but to be
Mhm.
on the radical side because we do some things that are a little crazy for the education arena.
Mm. That's a great story. Really great story. Listen, I think that saying that if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. That's a big one for
And he
you.
blows up my plans all the time. So now I don't really make a lot of plans. I just kind of go with the flow.
Hmm.
Um, I kind of loosely plan. I have loose visions, because I do believe in vision boarding and kind of having some idea where you're going. But I keep it loose. I don't dictate how I'm going to get there. I just define where I want to get to, and I let
Yeah.
God kind of lead me where I need to go.
Amen to that. That's how we all should do. Now, you've sat at some powerful tables, but what grounds you? Outside of business, what brings you joy and keeps you personally aligned?
Prayer.
Mhm.
I pray a lot. Ironically, my church is on a 21-day fast until Easter,
Mhm.
so we're going through prayer and fasting now. But I pray a lot. I pray for guidance. I pray for
Mhm.
God to give me wisdom. I mean, when I left home at 17, that was the only thing I asked God for, is to give me the wisdom of Solomon. He has done so. So I've ended up in some very interesting spots. The other
Mhm.
thing that I've gotten from prayer, which I think is probably just as important as wisdom, is to be bodacious. I am very bold. Sometimes I'm bold and raw, which kind of takes people on a different spin. But I just believe that you need to be bold if you want to get
Mhm.
anything done. And so I tell
Yeah.
people when I define the word bodacious, that means that you are sensational, you are radical, you have a mindset to take some risk that other people would not take. And I just
Mhm.
find in general, women are not bodacious. They're very cautious, but they're not bodacious.
Mhm.
Men, they shoot for the moon,
You're right.
planets, and if they fall in the stars, great. Women shoot for the trees, which means that that's not that far. And so I'm
Mhm.
like the men. I shoot for the planets. I shoot for the moon. I shoot for the sun. And if I fall in the stars. I'm still way ahead of where I started. And I do that just about for everything. So I'm always on the cutting edge. I tell people to be on the cutting edge means you're crazy, because
Mhm.
there's a fine line between being crazy and a genius, and it is a very fine line. And I
Yes.
kind of ride that line a lot. People call me
Mhm.
crazy, but I think I'm genius. But I am
Yeah.
crazy because I do some things that when people tell me that it cannot be done, I go whatever, and I just do it anyway. And then when it's done, then they go, oh, that was a genius idea. But it takes them about 10 years to get to that point. So I just ride on that line of crazy, and I figure people will eventually catch up.
I like that. I like that. My next question is something that is very important to me, and that is mentorship. It's a core value here. So, who mentored you when you were coming up, and how are you
Whew.
intentionally pouring back into others now?
I've had lots of mentors over the years because I
Mhm.
just believe that you got to have them. That's the one thing that I notice women of color do not do well is have
Mhm.
mentors. You can have mentors of all shapes, sizes. They can be in your industry, out of your industry. They can be social. You should always have mentors because sometimes those mentors they evolve to become sponsors. And the
Mhm.
difference between the two is that with a mentor, you bounce off ideas and they give you advice. But sponsors talk for you when you can't get in the room, that they
Mhm.
feel so strongly about what you can do that they will offer you up and says, "Hey, I got this person that can do that." And you will get assignments that you would have never gotten on your own. And so,
Mhm.
but you have to start with being a mentor, getting a mentor. And so I tell people, my automation works really did not start as an IT trade school. It started as a scavenger hunt, a tech
Mhm.
scavenger hunt at that. Started at Kamal, which is a robotics company out in Southfield off of 8 Mile and Telegraph. And then it
Mhm.
left there, and because of my mentor, it landed at the North American International Auto Show. We
Mhm.
were the first people of color event of that magnitude at the show, which was exciting. They gave us the space for free to experiment. We brought out lots and lots of young people so that they can see
Mhm.
the underbelly of what makes up a car. Because a car is, even though we look at it as one instrument, it is multiple pieces of parts that have been put together, and a lot of those parts are multiple slices of computers. So we look at it as it's multiple computers on wheels. And most people,
Mhm.
even though we sit in this region, do not realize how impactful the automotive industry is, including people who were born and raised here because they had never
Mhm.
been to the show. So we
Mhm.
were at the show for 3 years, and I can tell you the event went well. The only problem is I was under stress because we had more demand for what we could supply because we were supplying people tickets to come to the show to participate in the scavenger hunt to win cash prizes, answering questions on a mobile app. And the first
Mhm.
year we only had like 250 people because it was a short time frame to plan the event. But by the third year, we had 8,000 people applying for 650 slots. That was crazy. They were coming from all
Yeah.
over the state of Michigan. But what we noticed is they were people of color, African American, Native American, Hispanic American, and Asian American. And they were coming because African American person of color was running an event at the auto show. And we
Mhm.
were fully funded, because we got a lot of money from, ironically, German and French companies. It was just crazy. And so we eventually evolved that into the school because we had 10 adults because it was a family event that in order to participate, children had to be with their parents. And 10 of the
Mhm.
parents said, you need to open up a post-secondary school. And I went, but why? And I gave them all the places that they can go to learn technology. And they were like, but what
Mhm.
if you have no experience whatsoever? Where do we go? And really, I didn't have an answer. So I said, let me work on that. And I kind of tabled it. I didn't do anything with it right away. But then I was riding on the bus because I was putting my kids through college and they had gotten all my money, all $500,000. And I was riding on the bus and and I had on a suit and I had my iPad because while I was riding on the bus, I was writing books. I wrote 8 on the bus and something about the wheels going up and down. I don't know what that was. And the young man says, you got a paper schedule? I said, people still use those? Like, and he looked at me like, this, what planet is this girl on, right? I said, I didn't know people really still use those. He said, so what do you use to get around? Because obviously I didn't look like I belonged on a bus. I said, I use Google Maps. He said, for the bus? I went, oh yeah. And I was showing him, how to use Google Maps. And the Grand River bus, which is normally very rowdy, got really quiet. I mean, like, definitely you could drop a pin and it was just definitely quiet, right? So I stood up and I said, does anybody else need this Google Maps lesson? And everybody on the bus raised their hand like they were in a classroom. So that, first of all, blew me out. Number
Mhm.
two, what blew me out is that everybody on that bus had a smartphone because under the Obama presidency, the FCC gave out free phones, but they were all
Mhm.
smartphones with a data plan. So everybody
Mhm.
on the bus had a smartphone. So I
Mhm.
walked them through a lesson on Google Maps like they were in a classroom, which was
Mhm.
surreal, right?
Yeah.
So then when I was getting off the bus, I ran back and grabbed my bookcase, and as I was book bag, and as I was on my way out the door, the bus driver said, "I've been driving this bus for a long time." I said, "How long?" He said, "20 years," and I have never seen such a thing. And when he said that, it dawned on me, me either. I'm gonna have to do something with that because I had 80 people captive on a bus giving them a lesson. That was just like earth shattering after I thought about it
Yeah.
because nobody
Mhm.
would believe that I'm in the inner city of Detroit and I got 80 people on a rowdy bus, which means that they're in the inner city core of a city. They're not your most affluent people. And I just conducted a classroom on a bus.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Like the Magic School Bus, right? So I was like, well, let me go talk to one of my girlfriends who was a librarian. And I said, hey, I'm thinking I got to do something with this and I don't know what to do with it. But if I had to do a class, can I do it at your library? She said, oh, yeah. And I got 6 other friends. You could probably do it at their library too. So I said, I got to do something with it. So I got the library, Detroit Public Library, librarians ready, but I still don't know what to do. So I was talking to somebody over at the Herb Institute at the University of Michigan. This is why you got to have mentors because somebody
Right.
referred me to them. And I was telling them what I wanted to do. They said, have you ever heard of the Sustainable Brands Conference? I went, no, I have not. They said, well, it's coming to Detroit. I went, I would love to go. They went, great. But when I went and looked at the ticket, it was $3,200. I was like, I cannot afford it. So I called them back and said, I would love to go to the conference, but it was $3,200 and I can't afford that. They said, oh, we'll give you a ticket. I went, great. But they gave me a VIP ticket, which was better than a $3,200 ticket. I happened to just
Yeah.
be sitting next to
Yeah.
Cisco and said, "Oh, you're at Cisco Systems in Silicon Valley?" They went, "Yes." And I was like, "Great," because I need some money from you guys because I'm trying to start a school and told them what I was trying to do. And they were like, "We'll give you money." I'm like, "Great." That's
Mhm.
just how we got started, right? And so we were the
Mhm.
first Cisco Networking Academy situated in a public library in the United States of America. That was earth
Wow.
shattering. The VP, the
Yes.
executive vice president of sales, she was responsible for $48 billion in sales, came to kick off our school at the Detroit Public Library. That is awesome.
Very much so.
hmm
Very much
And so
so.
that's how we
That's
got started. So I just believe that you have mentors and sponsors because you don't know
mhm.
who is going to be in the room and who's going to speak well for you. But you want to be
Mhm.
able to have mentors that you turn into sponsors because they believe that you are bodacious enough to do what you said you're going to do,
Yeah.
or that you could do. And that's how you catapult your career. And when we tell people that, they don't believe us. But we even
Mhm.
have mentors for our students. We have a program within our school that we assign mentors to our young people because they need to
Uh-huh.
learn how to do that very early on and be
Yeah.
able to be able to use the mentors to help get them a job because that's how you get to high paying jobs. People think as
Mhm.
oh I just go and apply. No, that's not what happens. People get referred
Mhm.
into jobs. And the
Yeah.
only way you can do that is you have to have mentors and sponsors for that to happen. But for some
Mhm.
reason, we think that that doesn't really happen in real life, and I'm telling you, it does. Both of my top 5 students all got their jobs by referrals, every single one
Yeah.
of them. In the tech industry, people get paid to give referrals. So
Yeah.
they have a vested interest in being to referring you in, even if they don't know you, because they're going to make money. And
Mhm.
so a lot of that runs by referrals, but getting people to believe that you have to have mentors to get to referrals is what catapults your career.
Yeah. Totally agree. I'm going to switch gears. That was a great story. Many women that I serve as a coach, a fitness coach, a wellness coach, they're strong in business, but struggling quietly with their health and their confidence. And I help them prioritize themselves again through fitness and mindset and healing their bodies, especially the lower belly area. Now, in your experience, how important is it in terms of personal wellness for women building bold careers or businesses? How important is that to be prioritized in your life?
You cannot really be 100% bold in your profession if your
Hmm.
body's not healthy. Because
Hmm.
your body is not just your physical body, it's your mind, it's your mindset, and you need
Hmm.
all of it. Now, what happens, we get so tied up in our personal lives because we got children, some of us have husbands, we have houses. I tell people running a house is like a business. It keeps you on your toes.
Yes,
You
it
always have
is.
something to do.
Absolutely.
But I tell people like a business is outsourced. We have to learn to do that. And so you need
Hmm.
to outsource so you get time to spend on your fitness because I'm gonna tell you what happens. Most women
I
don't
love
spend
that.
time on their fitness because they're doing everything else.
Hmm.
And sometimes you have to be able to outsource to everything else so you can spend
Hmm.
time on your fitness. Because I was guilty of that. I had
Yeah.
twins, I'm running around, I'm running a business, I'm running a house. I just got a lot of stuff going
Hmm.
on, trying to educate them in school. You just got stuff. So you got to
Yeah.
outsource. Like I haven't done laundry, I can't remember when. I just don't
Hmm.
do laundry. I outsource it. You know, grocery shopping. I love DoorDash. They call me the DoorDash woman. I outsource grocery shopping. I just
Right.
outsource a lot of things because it just doesn't make any sense for me to do them. Because when I look at how much I make and how much I'm spending time doing that, because time is
Yeah.
money,
Yeah.
outsource all of that stuff so that I can do the things that I like the most, and that is to rejuvenate myself and to relax. In order to
Yeah.
rejuvenate, your body gotta have fitness. You gotta be busy.
Yeah.
You can't sit and be a couch potato all day. So I made a
Hmm.
decision. Well, I've been, healthy for a little bit, riding my bike and walking, but I decided
Hmm.
even doing all of that, I wasn't losing any weight. So in
Okay.
2023, I decided I enrolled in Pilates. I
Hmm.
said, I'm going to make this change. I'm going to make a commitment to this Pilates because I am dropping this weight. So far, I've dropped about 55 pounds. It really hasn't been that hard either. It's been good though.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. But it's a mindset change because
Mhm.
in order for you to be bodacious mindset, your body has to be in tip-toe condition. It has to be in good health. So I tell people if you're struggling with getting to your exercise routine,
Mhm.
outsource all that other stuff that you really don't need to be doing anyway. Why do
Mhm.
laundry? Hand it over to somebody who's good at that, and then just when the laundry comes back, it's already folded, and all you gotta do is put it in the drawers or put it on the hanger and keep it moving. So I
Mhm.
just believe that people should do that in their personal lives. That you
Mhm.
outsource all of the tedious stuff that you need to do to run the household, and then you
Mhm.
put the time on the stuff that matters, which is your relaxation, your rejuvenation, and spending actual time with your family.
So good, Ida. That's so good. Oh, I'm so glad you understand. Those are the women I serve, those that are too busy to prioritize themselves.
Mhm.
And every day, I'm just on that mission. So, legacy is powerful. When people speak your name 20 years from now, what do you hope they say about the life you lived and the lives you touched?
First of all, what I want them to say that I impacted 10 million people with my app, SensiWise, and
Mhm.
for that those 10 million people plan their vision and that they moved into technology because technology is in every career. It
Mhm.
doesn't pick one; it's there. So
Mhm.
you people need to be where that the jobs are. The second thing that I want them to walk away to know that I educated 100,000 people. Even though we're small now, we're gunning to educate and take certification about 100,000 people so that we'll be at the size of a University of Michigan. Now, when I
Awesome.
say that, people go, that's crazy. Oh, I'm sure they told them that in 1817 too when they started, but here we are
Yeah.
today. And so
Here
we
we
got
are.
started in 2020, and we're hoping
Yeah.
that if my son doesn't keep the legacy, that whoever buys Automation Works after I move on, that they keep that legacy going and that people can say Automation Works just like they say University of Michigan. So that's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm hoping will happen. The last thing that I'm hoping to happen is that we've moved millions and millions of people out of poverty. I tell people I was in the housing project, so I know what it means to be poor. And
Mhm.
poverty is not always about money. To me,
Right.
mostly poverty is about mindset.
Mindset.
And that
Yeah.
hopefully with our app that we can change people's mindset, that you could do anything you want. The question is that you have to set what is it you want to do and the price that you're willing to pay because you got to pay a
Hmm.
price. You got to put in the daily activity every day. That's the price you pay to achieve the goal. But anything that you want, you can make it happen. The question is, what
Hmm.
do you want? And are you willing to pay that price?
Mm.
So that's what we're
Yeah.
hoping my legacy will be when I leave this earth.
And I believe it will be because it's already started. So,
I'm hoping
ooh,
so.
that's great.
'Cause
Yes.
I'm pushing people and I'm pushing everybody. Everybody that I try to
Yeah.
come in contact, I push them, which means sometimes I'm a little raw.
Hmm.
I am very direct because I figure why waste time going around the bush? Because
Yes.
I'm trying to move people, and I'm trying to move people so that they have lived their best life. Because
Yeah.
when you live your best life, you look younger, you are
Hmm.
younger, your body's fit, you're enjoying yourself, you're happy, you're at peace, you're joyous,
Yeah.
and then God can speak some wisdom into your life and show you how to make more money.
Yeah. Um, this is such a great conversation, and I'm so thankful that you are here. And I have one final question.
Sure.
For the woman watching who feels behind and stuck or overlooked, I felt that way tons of times. And depending on the room I'm in, I still feel that way sometimes. What's one thing she can do today to reclaim her power and momentum?
I would say the first thing is talk to yourself in a mirror.
Mhm.
And I say that a lot. When I say that, people go, "What do you mean? That's crazy." No,
Mhm.
it's not. I believe that the Bible says, and if you're not a Bible scholar, please forgive me. The Bible says you speak into existence whatever you become. So you have to practice talking to yourself, telling
Mhm.
yourself not where you're going, but who you are now, because the human brain works in what's happening right now. So I say affirmations to myself in a mirror every day. I am a billionaire. I'm not there yet. I crossed the
Yeah.
million, but I'm trying to get to the with the B, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I tell myself I am a billionaire. I tell them myself that I am sexy, I'm beautiful, I'm smart, I'm a genius. Because my ears hear it and they just keep replicating that over and over again.
Mhm.
So the
Mhm.
first thing before you do anything is that you have to know exactly who are you and where you want to evolve to become. And
Mhm.
don't wait. You tell yourself that's who I am today. And
Yeah.
then that's who you will become. Because if you speak it to yourself, your ears hear it, your subconscious picks it up, and it rolls with it. But what
Mhm.
happens, we do the reverse. We do say
Yeah.
talk to ourselves, but it's all negativity. I
Mhm.
can't do this. Oh my God, that is so hard. Oh, that is so impossible. I mean, and I hear people say this all
Mhm.
day long. And it's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
I go, oh my God. And I don't even think they realize they do that because it's so
Mhm.
unconscious. So I
Mhm.
actually adopted when Maya Angelou wrote that Phenomenal Woman poem. I started saying when people ask me how am I doing, I initially said I'm phenomenal,
Mhm.
but then I turned to fabulous because fabulous made me feel better. So now when
Mhm.
people ask me for the last almost 9 years, how am I? I go, I'm fabulous. Now, does that mean everything in my life is going well? Hell no. The more money you got, the more problems you got. People think the more money you have, the less problem you have. That's a lie. The more money you got, the more problems you got. Bigger problems,
He said
bigger
it
fees,
best. He said it. More money,
right?
more problems.
More problems. So you got problems. So the more money you make, the more problems you got. Now, here's the difference though. Even though you have more problems, you had the money to be able to solve the problems. That's the difference.
Right.
So you don't worry about the problems. You
Hmm.
come up with a solution, you apply the money to it, and you keep moving. You don't just don't think about it. But more money brings more problems. But the issue that people don't realize is that you speak such negativity into your life all day, every day, and
Hmm.
that is the problem. It is. So the only way you do that, you have to speak those positive things into your life so that it begins to evolve based on what your body is hearing. And everything kind of moves from there. Now, I'm a bigger woman. I tell people I wear 16. And sometimes when you're a bigger woman, people do strange things to you. But they will tell you when I walk into a room, I command the room. Why?
You
Because
do.
I tell myself before I go into that room, I own this.
Yes.
Now, if you got a problem with that, that's your problem because it ain't my
Mm.
problem. It's going to be your problem. But I
Love it.
command wherever I go because I tell myself
Mhm.
I'm in command. And I don't care if it's people who are at the bottom. I don't care if it's people at the top because I do get the people at the top. Just recently, I got appointed to an AI Digital Skills Leadership Council that was run by Holland IQ in Boston Consulting Group. And at the council, they only set 75 people from around the world. And I'm sitting next to the person who heads up the education for the World Bank. That's a biggie. But guess what? Even then, when I'm sitting next to them, I control the room. And I had to chuckle because when he took a picture of us sitting in our little breakout group talking, I'm sitting in the middle and I look like
Mhm.
I'm in charge. I'm smiling and I'm in charge of this group. But I'm not. I'm just one of the 75. But that's how I talk to myself. That
Yeah.
I am in control. I run this. I'm at the top of the charts. I belong where these people are. So therefore, if they don't believe it, that's their problem. It ain't mine. And so I believe that you have to speak all of that into your existence. Same thing when automation works. When we started this school, because mainly our students are 18 to 50 or so, some of them are over 50, and everybody told me that it wasn't going to work because there's no way you can teach an old dog a new trick. And you certainly
Mhm.
can't teach an African American and Hispanic one who had never been exposed to technology, and move into a medical career. So we didn't get any investors. And my whole attitude is F them, they missed out because we gonna make it happen. Now, fast forward 5 years later, we rocking. In 2022, 2023, we landed on the intelligent.com's top 10 cybersecurity boot camps in the country. And that's because we can
Awesome.
compete with the best. Now,
Mhm.
that happens because I tell myself I am the best. I'm
Right.
the best. And so, therefore, I have become the best. So, I just believe you have to speak to yourself and you do it every day. Sometimes you may have to do it twice a day. When you first get up in the morning, you're brushing your
Mhm.
teeth. When you go to
Mhm.
bed at night and you're brushing your teeth, so it's in your mindset when you're sleeping, because your subconscious controls everything you do. And when you talk negative to it, you create your own negativity.
Mhm.
So just do the
Mhm.
reverse. Speak positive. And so therefore I get lots of positive opportunities that come my way and they
Mhm.
just come out the woodwork because that's what happens when you're talking to yourself. And then the
I
second
love
thing
it.
you do is you have to meditate and pray that
Mhm.
God gives you wisdom so that when the opportunities come, you seize them and you roll with them. Because a lot of times opportunities come our way, and because we're speaking so much negativity to ourselves,
Mhm.
we don't seize them and roll with them. They come
Mhm.
to us in an aha moment and we
Mhm.
miss them. We say, "Oh, I'm looking for an opportunity," and God sent you 50 of them, and you miss all 50. Wow. So you just have to talk to yourself so that you're open and you can see the opportunity because the opportunity is never going to come the way you think. It, like Thomas Edison says, it always comes dressed as work and overalls. So you need to be looking for that. It just does.
Mhm.
And so that's what
Mhm.
I believe. When you talk to yourself, you just open up yourself to all type of things and all type of opportunities, all type of people, and things that come your way.
Mhm. I love all of that. Do you understand me?
I'm glad because that's the way you do it.
You are
You do it.
truly you're truly a phenomenal woman, Ida. You really are. You've been teaching me all kinds of stuff without even knowing. Um, and I'm just so grateful. And I want to be a part of this school, though. I'm definitely, like I told you before, want to get my son involved, whether he feels like he can do it or whatever. I want him to at least have some knowledge of it so that he can make a decision on that. And I just love what you're doing. And I'm so grateful to God that He has blessed you to be able to touch the lives of many young, midlife, older people who are trying to just better themselves. So
And
thank you
a
so
lot of
much.
times they don't have to spend money because what people don't realize is that our school is funded by workforce development programs all over the state of Michigan and all over the country, and they will
Mhm.
pay your tuition for you. And so
Okay.
when people say, "Well, I wish I had the money to do it," well, here's the money. You just have to show up. You go to your
Yeah.
local workforce development office and you tell them
Mhm.
that you want to sign up to take a technology class. They will take you through a reading and a math assessment, look at your income because they
Mhm.
mainly cater to people who are below 50,000 of income. And if
Okay.
you fit the criteria, they'll pay for your tuition. So they pay a lot of young people to come to our school. And so my thing is that, don't always worry about the money, go out and see if you can get the money. Secondly, the last couple months or so, I've had a couple young people, actually the last 4 or 5 months, because the economy has
Mhm.
been tough and people want to retool themselves. If they
Yeah.
can't find the money, a couple young people say, well, will you allow me to pay as I go? So we
Mm.
have broken the payments up into 12 equal payments. They give us
Mhm.
first 112 payment up front, and they on automatic pay through PayPal where they pay every month. So there are many ways in order to get education, but our
Mhm.
thing is that we try to teach you how to not only have the tech skills, but how do you use all of the things of being finding a mentor, an advisor, and how do you find being bodacious? Because you got to be bodacious. You got to be able to open your mouth and ask people for things. And
Mhm.
oftentimes we don't. We're in situations where we could, and I'll give you a good example. And this is an example that I use that I tell people that drive Uber and Lyft that they can use. I was a maid at one point in my life, and I worked at the Ann Arbor Inn. And because my uniform was always pressed and my shoes were always shined, they put me on a convention floor where they had executives coming in to study at the University of Michigan Executive Leadership Retreat. So I knew everything about what was going on in Ann Arbor because, I was like the concierge myself. And so
Mhm.
I used that as an opportunity to actually bounce from being a maid to working in a bank because I
Mhm.
met the first of America executive vice president, and he would throw his suits on the bed. And I hated that. After day number two, I was like, I'm sick of this. So I took all the suits and sent it to the cleaners because I'm like, how does he wear these wrinkled suits? So I wrote a note on his mirror to say, here's your suit. I sent your suits to the cleaners, and here's the suit ticket. Well, he didn't read what was on the mirror. He basically accused me of stealing his suits. So when they
Mhm.
called me on the carpet and said, "You stole the man's suits," I said, "No, I sent the man's suits to the cleaners because for whatever reason, he keeps putting the suits on the bed. And so I have to lift the suits off the bed, make it the bed, and put the suits back on," which made no sense to me. So after 3 days of this, I had had enough. So I sent the
Mhm.
suits to the cleaners, right? Because obviously he got something going on with him, right? So he was saying, "Well, I just wanted to make sure my bed gets made." So I had to promptly tell this executive vice president, even if you don't sleep in the bed, this bed is going to get remade because I'm on this floor, right?
Right.
Which is why they put me on the floor. This room
Mhm.
gonna be clean, everything is gonna be in order, and you're
Mhm.
gonna move on, right? So
Mhm.
there's no need to put the suits on the bed because I'm gonna make the bed even if you never sleep in it, right? I said, and
Mhm.
not only do I make the bed, I put these nice, lovely pieces of candy on your pillow. Now, they thought it was a nice touch that the hotel did it, but I paid for that out of my pocket because I learned that
Mhm.
tips do everything. And then when
Yeah.
you're dealing with executives, they give you tips. So you need to
Yeah.
earn your tips by being a concierge
Mhm.
and being able to make their life easier. So he said,
Yeah.
"Well, since you such so flip and you so smart," I told him, "Thank you." Right? He says, handed me his card and said, "If you want a job, go over to the Ann Arbor branch because he was out in Kalamazoo and
Mhm.
tell them that I sent you over there and they will give you a job." And I says, "Okay." So on Monday morning, I called over to the bank. They were expecting my phone call. And I go over and I get a job in the bank. Now, was it the best job? No, it was a sucky job. It was the most horrible job I've ever had in my life. Because back then they were filing checks. You got your bank statements, you got your checks in the bank statements. Somebody
Mhm.
physically filed the checks in a file drawer. I hated that job,
Oh.
but I took it
Mhm.
anyway.
Mhm.
So as I'm sitting in the job, they said that they were going to automate the check filing. Now, all of the other check filers were older women because they've been in these jobs 20, 30 years. And I was like, I want to join that automation team. That's how I got into technology. They were like, why would we take you? You a check filer. I said, because I know COBOL. They were going to do programming in COBOL. So I went and did
Mm,
self study. That's how I know it. I didn't tell them I did. That's how I learned it. They
right,
don't need to know all
right,
that.
right,
So they put
right.
me on a team, and I just kept automating stuff in banking. Just kept automating stuff in banking. So sometimes you have to be your own best friend, and you have
Yes,
to
you
step
do.
up and be a little bold in
Yeah,
how you get things done. You have to open your
yeah,
mouth and ask for what you want. And
yeah,
oftentimes we're not. And so I tend to do that. I talk to strangers all the time. So my thing is, if you're in a lower level job, you need to use it to your advantage. And I'm going to tell you how to best do it. Lots of people are driving Uber and Lyft.
yeah.
So I said to one of my students, he said he's having a hard time getting networking. I was like, don't you do Uber and Lyft full time? He went, I do. So you should be networking there. He goes,
Mm-hmm.
no, because everybody, all of those are not great runs. I said, yeah, but I told you a year ago you should only take airport runs.
Mm,
He said, what do you mean? First of all, if somebody's coming in Detroit from the airport and it's a business day, they're coming to transact business. You
yes.
now have them captive for 30 minutes to make whatever pitch you need to make. And then
Yes.
as they are off getting out of the car, you get their card and you hand them a copy of your resume. Because you didn't talk to them for 30 minutes. You didn't heard what they said about themselves. You didn't talk about yourselves. You didn't had an interview without even having an interview.
Yes.
That to me is brilliant. That goes
It
back
is
to me being
brilliant.
what I did when I was a maid, right?
Exactly.
So I said that's the newfangled way to do it. So when I said it to the young person a year ago, he ignored it. Then he came to me and said he's looking for a job. I said, because you didn't do what I told you to do. You're doing Uber full time all day, every day. You should only take airport runs because now you got a captive audience of business people who are coming into Detroit to do business.
Mm-hmm.
You got them for 30 minutes. You should be talking about what they do, learn about what they do, and then you should be formulating what you do that will help what they do, which means you just had an interview. If you're
Yeah.
not doing that, why not?
Mm. Good question. Why not?
Why not? And so the bells would finally went on in his head. And he says, funny you should say that, Miss Ida, because the reason he called me, because he had a business person in the car who was telling him all the things he could do, la 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 la. And he thought about Miss Ida because he hadn't did what I
Mm-hmm.
told him to. And he called me. I said, see? And the guy sent God sent somebody to kind of say what I said to kind of get you to get
Mm-hmm.
moving.
Yeah.
So let's get
Yeah.
moving. Real
Yeah.
simple. So to me, you're sometimes you're in positions where you can do these things, you just don't use it. Or I had a student who works at the Detroit Athletic Club. So I said to him, you are at the crown, the cream de la creme of
Yes.
executives. He says, well, I don't know how to do it. So for him, I said he didn't feel comfortable doing his resume. I said, okay. I said, so this is what we're gonna do. You know LinkedIn, because all of my students have LinkedIn profiles that has their resume built in it. You know
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn has a QR code for your profile. He would know. I didn't know that. Oh yeah, it does. So if you don't feel comfortable giving them your resume, as you're talking to people at the club, since you do talk to them regularly, you can ask them, hey, can I have you scan my QR code because I want you to become a connection on LinkedIn? First of all, they're going to be surprised that you, the security guard, have a LinkedIn, number one. So they're going to tell you yes.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, while you're doing that, if you want to take it to the next level, you could give them a card with your information on it so they can reach you. But you definitely got your LinkedIn because when you get their LinkedIn, that means you pick up all their friends, which means you're picking up executive friends on your LinkedIn. It is so much
Mm-hmm.
easier to ask friends for a job than it is to ask people you do
Yeah.
not know. So you
Yeah.
can use it. But I find that a lot of people who may be at those lower levels don't even think about it. You
Yeah.
got to be strategic. So if you're going to be in those jobs and you're catering around rich people all day, you might as well get something out of it. So
Yeah.
if you're not on LinkedIn, you need to go on LinkedIn. And oh, and LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
didn't pay me for this, but if they happen to be watching this show, I would love to be able to get a sponsorship check from LinkedIn
Oh.
for selling
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn, right? So my thing is go out and use it because business people may not go on
Absolutely.
Facebook, they may not go on Instagram, but they going on LinkedIn. So use it to your advantage.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Ida. Now, What can we do for Ida?
Well, what I am looking
What can
for
we
is
do to
I
help
really
Ida?
want I want young people, and when I say young, that's anybody less than 80, for those who may not realize that. I really want them to be able to live their fullest life. And the only way you can live your fullest life is to know what is that life going to look like. Because what I find is
Mm,
most people land in things by accident, and that makes no sense to
mm,
me. I have lived
mhm,
by a vision board my entire adult life, actually since I was
mm.
15. And it drives me. Notice I didn't say where I'm going drives me because I don't know what that path is going to look like, but I know
Yeah.
what I want the end of the path to look like. So I give you a good
Mhm.
example. At the end of the path, when I retire 7 years from now, eight almost eight, I want to live on a cruise ship. So there's a cruise ship that's called the World, where having a condo is $2 to $3 million. That's my end goal. How I get
Mhm.
there, I really don't care, but I'm going to get there because I want to live on a
Yeah.
cruise ship 365 days in a year. But in order to get myself prepped, my vision board has a cruise because I've been working my way up days in cruising. So right now, I'm getting ready to take a 21-day cruise because I'm working my days
Oh.
upward. So I kind of know where I'm going.
Mhm.
So once I do the 21, then I'm
Mhm.
gonna do a 32, then I'm gonna do a 45, then I'm gonna do a 70, and then I'm gonna hit the crowning glory of 80, then I'm gonna hit 100. And by the time I get through doing all that over 8 years, I would have gotten myself accustomed to being on a cruise ship 365
Yeah.
days a year. But how I
Yeah.
get there, I have no idea and don't really care. But I know what
Yeah.
the end goal is going to look like. And what I really want people to do is to define, what does your end goal look like? So we have made it easier for you. We have an app that's called SensiWise that has a pictorial vision board. So what you will go in there, you put in your goals, and then you select a picture for the goals, and then it will populate the pictures on one page for you, so you can rearrange them, scrap a screenshot for your phone, and you can walk around with your vision board on your phone all day, every day.
I love
Now,
it.
that is important. People go, that stuff doesn't work. Yes, it does. I have been doing a vision board since I was 15, which is how I got out of the hood. I tell people, I had said to my parents, because I'm poor, that I'm on my way to college. They said to me, we don't know how you're going to pay for it. I told them I'm not worried about it because somebody's going to give me, a genius, a scholarship. Well,
Mm.
it wasn't a somebody, it was 11 somebodies. I got 11 universities who accepted me and 11 who gave me, if not a full ride scholarship, almost full ride, which is how I got to
Wow.
Michigan, right? Um, so I kind of set that in stone at 15. Now, did that mean I had to do some things to get ready? I did, because I didn't know how nobody in my family had ever taken standardized exams of ACT or SAT. We didn't have the money to afford to go to take those exams. And back then, the
Mhm.
schools didn't talk about it. Only the wealthy
Mhm.
kids took those tests. So to
Right.
prepare myself for those tests, I actually studied out of Oxford Dictionary. I read the dictionary from cover to cover. Now, I know that sounded a little extreme. It was extreme because since I didn't know what I'm going to get into, I know that the tests
Mhm.
are built on vocabulary. I felt if I read the entire Oxford Dictionary, there was no word that the test could throw at me that I didn't know what it meant.
Mhm.
Well, I did that in 10th grade, and lo and behold, I scored in the 80th percentile in this country,
Wow. Wow.
which is how I got scholarships. Because when you scored in the 80th percentile in the 10th grade, they gave you a 10% bonus for 11th grade, which now bumped me up to the 90th percentile of students in the entire United States of America.
Let's go,
Sitting
genius.
in Flint Housing Project, by the
Yeah.
way. And it was the most
Yeah.
freakiest thing to see Yale come knock on my door in the tenement wanting to meet who Ida Byrd is. That happens for real, right? But
Yeah.
that started because I had put that on my vision board that I am going to college and I'm going there. I'm not going to have a student loan. Somebody's going to pay my way. Now,
Yeah.
I did work when I was in college, which I didn't want my kids to do because I had to work because I needed money to live on. But I did make a decision that when I left college, I was going to leave with exactly 10,000 in cash because I
Mm.
wasn't starting my college graduation and thereafter broke.
Broke.
Well, I
Yeah.
left with 12,000, right?
Mm.
But I wasn't making a whole lot of money, but I learned
Mhm.
how to save money. I learned
Yeah.
how to invest money. I taught that to my children. So the
Mm-hmm.
vision board sets the agenda of where do you want to land? And then
Yeah.
you let the universe help you create the path. Because you may not, it may be a different path. You may think you're going to start on one path and you end in another one. I started in investment banking. That's where I wanted to be when I got my bachelor's in economics. I did work for a bank. Then I left there and I worked in headhunting, which was where I made a lot of money doing that. And then I came owned a wealth management firm myself, made goo gobs of money with that, managed $620 million of assets. When they told me
Mm-hmm.
that as a young person, I couldn't do it, I did it. I took it from zero to 620 million. And the bulk of that was in the Black community because Black people do have money. And
Mm-hmm.
so the vision board lays down where are you going? The path you
Yeah.
don't the path will change. You just got to have wisdom enough that when the opportunity comes, you know how to move around the path. But you got to know where am I going? And I just find people
Yeah.
have no idea where they're going, which is why they end up going
Yeah.
nowhere. But you got to define where am I going? So I at all times have a vision board. I have a
Mm-hmm.
1 year, well, actually it's every 6 months because I should change it every 6 months. And then I have a 10 year that I have mounted on my office wall. I change my vision board every 6 months because a lot of my goals do come true.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it comes true so fast this it's scary. So in 2023, when I went
Mm-hmm.
in July, I went to go buy a new condo. I put what I wanted the condo to look like. And ironically, the first condo I look at, it looks almost like my vision board. It scared me to death. So instead of me making an offer on the spot, I said, well, let me go look at three others because you don't spend over $250,000 and you only looked at one place. That's insanity. Well, I
Right.
went and looked at four or five others, three or four others, whatever it was, over 4 days. So it wasn't that much time. When I come back, somebody had made an offer on my dream condo. I was sick. So I learned right then, move. You got to move. When it comes, you don't wait.
Gotta move.
Well, thank God it was a corporation and the condo association didn't accept their bid, which meant my bid, which was number
Mm-hmm.
two, came into play. But I'm gonna tell you, when you set what you want, you get what you want. When I went to buy the condo, the corporate buyer offered the person 50,000 off over their price, and they told them no. I offered them 50,000 under their price, and they told me yes. Because I said I wouldn't spend more than this. I had a dollar figure. I wasn't spending more than this dollar figure, period.
Yeah.
And I did. And so I got a nice condo that already had 50,000 of value in it when I started, which was great. And so, but when I told my realtor to make he's like, that's not going to happen. I went, oh, yeah, it is. He says, no, because the last person asked, we're going to pay 50,000
Mm-hmm.
more than what the asking price was because everybody was fighting to get property because we were, right after the
Yeah.
pandemic, property was scarce.
Yeah.
I said, I don't care. They're going to set my offer and it's going to be 50,000 less. And they did. Shocked both realtors actually. Because even the selling realtor was like, they're not going to accept that. And they did. And the reason why they did, because I did my homework. I had already had a pre-approval at a very well-known mortgage company. And all I needed to do was to get an appraisal. So they were thinking fast closing, and that is what happened. So my thing is, if you know your end goal, the path of how you get there, who knows? And then I had to
Yeah.
chuckle because when I got the mortgage company, it was through United Wholesale Mortgage. They came to me and they said, since you haven't bought a new property in 10 years, we could consider you as a first time home buyer. I went, really? I was like, can I get down payment assistance? Because that was what I wanted, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were like, yeah, we'll see. Then when they came back, the first two, they were like, you make too much money. I said, I kind of figured, but I thought nothing hurts a good old fashioned try. So then they came back on the third try. He says, guess what? You don't make too much money, and they're going to give you 6,000 towards the down payment. I'm like,
Wow.
woohoo! I'm going to use that to renovate my kitchen. Bling, bling, bling. So, but all of that happened on my vision board. So after six
Mm.
months, I cleared out the whole vision board because everything I wanted on there, except for the $5 million I wanted for my business, happened. So that I carried forward for the next 6 months. So I just believe that what the vision board does, it tells the universe, God, whoever the higher power, that this is where I am going. Give me the wisdom, the peace, the joy, the love, and all of that turns into bodaciousness to achieve what's on this board. That's what it does. So if you were bold enough to put it on your board, then all of those things will come into play to help you get there. The question is, are you bold enough to put it on your board? And I say a lot of people are not. Tells
Well,
again
we
what
want them
cannot
to be
happen,
because we
but the
want them to
board says
use.
what this could happen.
Yeah.
So that's what I want people to do. So I want them to go download my app, Sensi Wise. It's spelled
Can you spell Scentsy
Sensiwise.
Wise for? Okay.
Sure. It is
Mhm.
SENSEIIWYZE, SensiWise. And download it. It's free. And go create your own vision board, save it to your phone, and let's see what happens. And if things are happening positive to you, reach out and tell me because we love success stories.
Thank you so much, Ida. So you all go and get Scentsy Wise, put it on your app, know where you're going, know where you're going, know where you're going. Okay. That is what this app helps you do. Visualize and then get there. Get there by any means necessary. Of course, barring anything, illegal. But again, we want to thank you, Ida. You're amazing. We love you. Hope to have you back months later to find out what's going on with Ida and her trajectory of living on a cruise ship. I love that. So, everyone, have a great day. We'll see you next time.
All righty, see you guys later. Thank you for having me.